What's right for you, co-managed or non-co-managed MSP services? My name is Harrison Barron from growth-generators.com. We help MSPs with sales training and marketing. Before I get into anything, I do want to mention just one quick thing. Down in the video description, there is a ton of links. Some of those links are masterclasses, some of them are to the Discord, some of them are to other helpful resources, some free, some paid, but I would highly recommend at least scrolling down and checking them out. And if you want to visit us online, growth-generators.com is where you can find us. So let's talk about co-managed services. How do you talk about it, right? Because there's always this weird feeling when you go up to a business, especially if you're trying to earn their business, and they already have an IT guy. How do you deal with that one? Well, it's a very strange conversation, especially if you're not prepared for it or you've never had this conversation before. And who do you actually talk to? How do you get in front of it? Well, who you talk to is going to vary dramatically. You might be talking to that IT person, or you might be dealing with the business owners or executive board when it comes to actually pitching your services. And every situation is going to be different. I don't want to tell you, and then you guys are like, well, Harrison told me to go to this guy. No. It can vary tremendously. Sometimes the IT director wants to have additional support and doesn't want to hire internally because they don't want to pay vacation time. They don't want to pay overtime. They don't want to pay sick time. They don't want to pay for insurance. They don't want to pay extra taxes. And the list kind of goes on and on and on. But management might say, hey, you know what? We want to either bring in an MSP because we'd like to phase out our current IT staff or not continuously add more IT people. Or we'd like, hey, you know what? We're kind of maxed at the people. We just don't feel like we'd rather deal with a pool of people that know what they're doing, but have a couple hands on staff. So let's talk about the first and most important thing when you're talking about it, the cost effectiveness of hiring an MSP for a co-managed situation. MSPs are really good at what they do, which is having really talented staff and all the fun tools that we all know and love. That's what they're really good at. And the nice part is because they're constantly working and getting in different environments, they happen to be really smart people. Now, this is super cost effective because of all of the reasons I had just mentioned before. On top of that, hiring an IT person, depending on at least where you are in the States, you're looking at least $40,000 of upwards to maybe for that role, $60,000 to $80,000 for a level 1, maybe level 2 tech support in there. So you kind of have these two sides of it. For between $40,000 and $80,000, more than likely, you could probably hire an MSP to do quite a bit of that work. So it's cost efficient right off the bat. And guess what? The MSP isn't going to ask for days off, isn't going to ask for time off, isn't going to get sick. They will have multiple people in there to cover that. And it really removes the burden of a salaried employee. On top of that, workers' comp, HR, the list goes on and on about hiring an employee. So right off the bat, we have a massively cost-effective solution by bringing in an outside MSP. And this is great if you're a MSP or soon to be MSP, because now you can say, hey, we are super cost effective. And here's why: bullet point after bullet point after bullet point. Now, the second part is, and I've kind of alluded to this, is massively improved efficiency and productivity. Once again, the MSP has all of the fun tools. Now, they don't have unlimited money, but more than likely, depending on the size of the business, they're going to have a config room, a server room, tons of extra hardware laying around that isn't 25 years old like that company might have. But additionally, they probably have systems and processes and procedures to train new employees, teach them the order of operations in which to do things. And ultimately, hey, if something's going wrong, it's not a pound the keys to find a Google answer and hope that Google answer works. It's probably a, hey, nudge, let me ask my neighbor who's sitting right next to me, who's also doing help desk support. Maybe they have a idea right there, instead of trying and running it through the flagpole or as an internal staff, doing everything that you possibly can before you call an outside agency. And last but not least, they have all the fancy tools to do things. There are a lot of limitations when you, even as an IT director in a business, there is always constraints on money. Without a doubt, it is the hardest thing to get for the right stuff. We want a new switch. The IT guy, they always want to spend money. They always want this. They always want the fun new toy. They have shiny object syndrome. They always, if you feel attacked, I apologize. But it's true. We as tech people, if you are anything like me, I have a stack of cables in the corner of the room and tons of other tech that I play with on the regular. Well, guess what? That is massively magnified with an MSP because you have more and more people. Everyone finds different things interesting, from switches to firewalls to computers to custom computers to routing to cables, all of the good stuff, and a trillion adapters at that. And they are just better and have the tools, have the fun tools, have the advanced tools, and they don't have to really go to somebody else for permission to buy things, especially when they're tools that they could use for other clients. There's a lot of leeway in there. So they, right off the bat, they have three major advantages: that cost effectiveness, that efficiency and productivity, and then the better tools. But this wouldn't be a video if I didn't tell or talk about some of the drawbacks that you can prepare yourself to deal with. But before I do that, I would like to welcome you to hitting the like button. And as you do that, I'm also going to have you slide your cursor over just a little bit to the right if you're on a desktop, and on the phone it's like right there too, and just hit that subscribe button because I love you, and that's the kind of person I am, and it means the world to me. And if you want to take our relationship to the next level, hit the little bell. I appreciate that. So let's get into the drawbacks, because with all good things, there is always a bad side. You can't have only good and none of the bad. There's always going to be something there. The hardest and biggest challenge, which your advanced tools will help with, RMM, PSA, all that good stuff, is communication. You no longer have what I was just talking about. That person in a desk, hey, can you help me with this real quick? I got something going on. And they could just look over, oh, I've dealt with that before, and give the answer. There has to be communication between the internal staff and the MSP. And communication, no matter the industry, is always a point of failure. It is the number one thing the military works on. I have a fire department flag right here. I was a fireman for 10 years. The amount of stress and effort we put in to communications and communication styles, from abbreviating things and using special codes across the board because we understand how important communication is crazy. And guess what? We practice all the time. And even still, things don't always go according to plan. Communication between the internal staff and the external staff, the MSP and the internal IT people, is always going to be a problem. It is going to be the probably biggest issue that you have to deal with, is communication. And if you can solve that and you train your people to be communication masters, we did this, it sends in real time, all of that good stuff, and you're constantly updating the internal staff, you'll have a million times better odds when you're dealing with this kind of situation. Number two is the control of who has control and access to what and whose responsibilities. Guess what? People are going to start doing this. Well, he said this and he did this, and well, I did this. It's like a Harry Potter scene. They are just casting spells back and forth and pointing the finger. It's not gonna work. You have to take and clearly, with excruciating detail, what is and is not a part of that deal. And hey, or maybe one party has to take more responsibility or all of the responsibility and leverage the other party. For example, using that internal staff as the managers for the MSP, and you have ultimate responsibility. Or the other way, the MSP has all of the responsibility and leverages the internal staff for anything that they need, especially with hands-on stuff. And then the last but not least, the other problem is, well, what happens if we don't love you? What happens if this doesn't work? There are always going to be issues with an external provider. Heck, I am sure that you have wanted to pound your head against a wall because you didn't like the software you were using or your emails weren't loading. The list goes on and on because nothing ever happens at a convenient time. It's never a Tuesday afternoon. There isn't a phone call, not a ticket on the board. And you're like, hey, My email's not working. Let me just take a few minutes and diagnose this issue and resolve it. Now, I feel like I just painted a Bob Ross picture because that doesn't exist. That doesn't happen in our world. It is always when things are going wrong, there is always a chance for them to get significantly worse. And I'm laughing because it is true. And that is how some of that relationship will be. You are dealing with an external provider. No matter how hard you work to make it work, there will always be some levels of friction. And the more lubrication you can add, the better communication, the better responsibility, I would even recommend meeting on a regular basis, the better off you are going to be, because that internal person will always think the MSP is coming for their jobs, and the MSP will always believe the internal person is consistently trying to get that MSP fired. It is just how the way the world works. And I want to make you aware of these things. So let's talk about how to actually pitch these services to a potential client, because I'm not a gatekeeper. I'm not just going to give you half the information. I want to give you all of the information. Number one, understand the client's needs. Really, really understand the client's needs. What are they struggling with? What pain points do they have? And what is currently not going on, especially with their internal staff? And how can you fill that void? And you don't want to make the internal person sound awful, especially if they like the internal person. You don't want to poo-poo them and then they go, well, they're just pooping all over my favorite guy. He just is at his maximum payload here that he can actually deal with. You want to offer effective strategies, effective ways to assess the progress, and consistently work on offering what the actual problems are and solutions to those problems. Next is going to be highlighting those benefits that we just talked about. You want to make sure that you really highlight the benefits, because somebody, especially if this is the first time doing it, is going to have some kind of a bit of a weird feeling as time progresses. Normal. They're like, I have an internal guy, but like I also have an external team. This feels a little strange. I've never gone down this path before. That's normal. You want to make sure you highlight the benefits and address the concerns that they might have before they come up. All of the concerns I just mentioned, you should have ready at the holster to say, hey, that's a problem. Boom, this is how we're going to take care of it. Boom, this is how we're going to take care of it. Boom, that's how we're going to take care of it. You want to be ready. You don't want to be too eager, but you want to make sure that you can address those concerns. And when you deliver this information on a nice proposal to give to the person, you have to make sure that it's not just the run of the mill. Here's our 3 sections. You fall in this one. No, you really want to take the time and energy to put the passion and love into it. You are entering in an even more challenging relationship than you normally would with a regular client. You need to take the time it doesn't have to be a completely new proposal, but you really want to go through and talk and work through this. And so that way the client reads it and says, wow, this is for me. This is exactly what we talked about. All our pain points, how they're going to be addressed, the price associated with it, maybe different tiers of what they think we need. And then I can take it to my IT person and say, what do you think is the best solution? This is what the package they built based on the conversations that we've actually had. And that is how you are going to have a truly fruitful co-managed MSP services agreement. That is the secret sauce behind it. I hope I have given clarity to this, because I see it all the time. Well, we have a co-managed environment. They are fairly rare, but they can work. I have dealt with it before. Trust me, it can work, but you have to keep a really good tab on those communication skills. Like we talked about, they are really important. The clear roles and responsibilities for both, and making sure that both parties depend on each other just as much as they don't need to depend on each other. They need to be able to operate individually, but they should also depend on each other as an extension of them. That internal IT person is extending out to the MSP, and then MSP is extending out to that internal IT person. And that is how you have the absolute most fruitful, best co-managed services solutions. Now, if you've made it this far, I mean, I always ask for the like and subscribe button, but this video was this. I don't have any hair left. Okay. I used all of this hair. It all fell out as I designed this video because it really came down to what could I make for you guys? And I love the heck out of you guys. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. I love every single one of you, even though sometimes I make videos when I'm a little tired and there's a spelling mistake here and there, but I love you guys. I appreciate you guys for always checking me out, checking out this channel, following along, hang out this in the Discord, check out the links below, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.